we'll be talking today about parenting middle schoolers. And in the last 10, 15 years, I've been working closely with the Jesus Youth Ministry, and had the opportunity to work with many families, ministering to the families as well as children, middle schoolers, and I happen to have a middle schooler at home myself, and trying to look into the various aspects of parenting, as well as and I referring to the many church documents and attending retreats, and so wanted to share some thoughts and ideas and some of the learning from these experiences with all of you. And especially last weekend, I had an opportunity to attend a retreat and with Father Joshi at the Divine Center in New Jersey, and a lot of thoughts and ideas came, or his thoughts seem very relevant to the groups, which I will be sharing on his behalf also. I thank the Pro-Life Ministry for organizing this, and also giving me the opportunity to present these thoughts. I consider no expert in this field, because the more I think about middle schoolers and parenting, every time I think there's more to do. And so as much as this is more of a session for me as well, it's not because an expertise that is being shared, but more so the learning, or a learning that is happening together. So thank you. So it's a very interesting time period as we raise children, and as you all who will be interested in this session, I'm sure you most likely have a middle schooler at home. It's a very interesting age group of parenting, and very challenging. And we can see as within Jesus Youth, as we were praying for the middle school ministry, as the ministry is evolving. One of the passages the Lord reminded us about is about Jesus himself being a middle schooler, or at the age of a middle schooler, and as things going on in their life, and his parents looked up to him with intrigue, and we can see how his parents are wondering what's going on, and why he's behaving, why he's replying. And it's a beautiful passage when Jesus gets lost in the temple, and the mother and the parents find him, and their questions. So they ask, "Son, why have you done this to us? For your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And a verse later it says, and he replies saying, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. And as middle school parents, I think this last verse is very true in many times and situations in our lives where we don't understand what he is saying. And I hope the next 40 minutes or so we'll think together on some of the challenges and some of the approaches, and we'll also be looking at some of the practical ways. One thing wanted to stress during this is some practical tips or steps on how to deal with this. So with that, let me move to the very first slide. So very interesting example that Father Joshi was talking last weekend is he was talking about how human beings are designed to be grown in love. So he was comparing the example of a calf who takes just, both the cow and humans have similar gestation period, but the calf gets up on its legs in under 10 minutes. And a child takes 1 year or 10 months to to a year to stand up and walk. And you can see how in the design of the baby itself, how in the design of a human baby, the child is designed to grow in love over a extended period of time. Even all those steps needs to be grown in love by the very gentle caring of the parents, nurturing of the parents until he walks. And there's a lot more to that walking, even though from a biological, strictly on a science or biological way, if you do an analysis, the baby just walked and it took 10 months or one year. But there's a lot of love that has gone in to get to that state and get to that. So this kind of shows the importance. And as we look into the various steps and the slides, let us ask the intercession of our dear mother and the parents. And I just wanted to set a tone for what is what we'll be discussing. Let's ask the intercession of Mother Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So another phrase that Achan mentioned last week, and I would like to quote. I have a few slides that I picked up from this weekend. Love equals presence. We all try to define love in many forms, but I thought, especially when it comes to raising children, I thought this is a very apt phrase or definition of love when it comes to raising children, and a language of love that is understood, and a language of love that is necessary, essential as we parent. No amount of gadgets or technology or the best material things can substitute this presence or this expression of love. They all can be misunderstood, and as the modern world will be proposing many ideas of love. Maybe it is, especially with Thanksgiving and Christmas seasons coming up, or as the secular world calls it, the holiday season. As they come up, people are busy buying gifts and materials. I'm not saying any of those things are bad, but not to forget the language of love that is most understood and relevant to the children is presence. And I always use this when I talk to the parents, and it acts as a reminder for myself also. The difference is not about the plant, but the soil in which the plant is growing. And our dear Pope exhorts us, and he challenges us that, especially in this world today, where there is so much brokenness around us, there's so much challenges, and where truths are being redefined or attempted to be redefined, we cannot be content with a mediocre Christian life. We have to have that confidence and to walk along the path of holiness. And this is not something where we can take some chances, because we have only one chance. And we have to be vigilant to make those bold sacrifices which the Lord inspires us. And as we go through the sessions, be in a spirit of prayer, because the Lord will be speaking through different inspirations. He would be inspiring different thoughts, and let us take the courage to take that, to follow those inspirations, because in today's world, when there's so much the world has to offer, we need to be bold enough to make a sacrificial effort now. Justice is always about what is being done now versus if I'm hungry, the food is needed now, not a big feast a month later. because that won't, that is not justice. So you can always say, oh, you're hungry, but let me get the best meal for you, but it might take a month to get there. So just like that, as we are raising children, the justice for them is today, not 5 years later when things are settled. And I remember an example, as we were talking to a parent years ago, as he was busy with getting settled in the early years, while the child was kind of neglected, and we're having a conversation and said, oh, I'll go this way for until he is 9 or 10, and then I'll get send him for a kids retreat. So any amount of retreat is not going to be a solution for what is missed, especially in the early years. So but at the same time, we don't have to be afraid. That's one thing I want to remind, even when we look at that. Oh, don't be worrying about, oh, I lost so many years. Especially when we're talking about middle schoolers, I lost so many years, and there's no restoration possible. No, we had to trust. We start now and this moment, and we trust in the superabundant mercy and love of our God, and we are not alone. It's the Lord who is taking us through, and the book of Deuteronomy gives us a beautiful example of how a people of God, when they are entering in a new land, new country, even the country that the Lord has given them, He gives many exhortations saying how to live there, how to what not to do and what to do, and I recommend all parents to use that as a guide, as a reference guide, the book of Deuteronomy, as we raise children and as we run into challenges. But one thing he keeps reminding us is, do not be afraid. He is there. No matter how challenging situations are, do not be afraid, and He is there. And we are not alone in this journey, because we are custodians of the Lord's children, and He has given the grace as parents. He has given the grace to deal with any situation, how no matter how bad it might be. He gives the grace to the office of the parent. As dad and mom, the office of the parent is blessed with that grace that is needed to raise any challenging situation and any challenging child. So, and we are, in many ways, we are blessed to be in this land, in this country, where as much as we might think faith is or the country or the land is defiled with many modern ideas and distortions of truth, but this is also a land that is blessed with faith. And like Romans 5:21 says, where sin abounded, or where sin increased, grace abounded all the more. So that's the promise that we have, the courage that we should rely on as we raise our children, not just human efforts. And the Lord says, when you pass through waters, I'll be with you. Through rivers, you shall not be swept away. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, nor will flames consume us. So do not be afraid. And Philemon 1:10, we have to discern what is of value. When the world has to propose many ideas and options, we really, as parents, we have to really discern what is of value. Does it make sense? Is this building the spiritual person? Are we able to see beyond the body, the physical dimensions? Are we able to see the spiritual person behind, who is embodied, and see those and cater to those and discern what is of value? And often, we talk about what is education, and this is from the beautiful church document about human sexuality, guidelines for raising children, and also in Familiaris Consortium. the principal, it calls us parents to be the principal educators of children. Yes, we send them to school. Yes, then we send them to tutors and retreats. But when it comes to education, parents are the principal educators. And then the question is, what do we educate them on? What is education? And the church teaches us boldly that it's about two things: raising children as human beings and Christians. That is mission number one, or education goal number one. And the second is love for God and love for neighbors. Two primary goals of education. And when you look at in that sense as education, and down this later we'll be thinking about more aspects of this, but and you can see the importance of parents and in the role of role of parents in educating their children, and not just be content with the with science and math or literacy that they teach in school. And another, the world will always pull us towards focusing on ourselves, our possessions, and our desires. But the gospel is our guide to share with our, to be open, to have space for others in our life, to open our lives, to share with the poor, to look beyond ourselves, our selfishness. Very challenging, especially as parents, because we want to raise these. If these are the goals of education, then it starts with us as parents. And one of the first I think about in this direction is, as we look more concretely, is the unique creation that we are. And in Genesis, God said, "Let us make human beings, the image and likeness and of who we are, the uniqueness that we, each one of us are." And especially when it comes to children, we are not raising just anybody, but we are raising this unique creation, which the Lord has so fearfully, and the psalmist says in 139:14, "You were fearfully and wonderfully woven in my mother's womb." The psalmist is saying, fearfully and wonderfully woven in my mother's womb. And we can see the care with which, the importance with which each and every human being is created. And when we look at our children's face, and that's probably the first thing that we should be able to recognize. The gift of God, who is fearfully and wonderfully woven. And this is kind of the foundations on which the rest of this, the thoughts are constructed in this session. Because this uniqueness, which needs to be communicated, which needs to be adored, and this uniqueness, which the Lord found, like in Genesis 1:31, we see God looked at everything He made and found it to be very good. And this uniqueness and this goodness is the foundations for the parenting. For example, when the child comes back and from school, getting bullied or commented saying how ugly he looks, or being called an ugly, or she doesn't have to start dressing in revealing clothes to get that beauty. The Lord has, you should be boldly able to see that. Tell her and him that you were fearfully and wonderfully woven in your mother's womb by the Lord. And He looked at you. He looked at your creation and said, it is not just good, it is very good. So, and then we'll be looking at our child, not just with on their abilities and skills, their ability to understand algebra or especially as they're middle school, they'll be struggling with their algebras and science and trigonometries. But you look at not their abilities, but the deep person. Again, this becomes the foundation. So this basis for how we often easily fall into this. Yoshichan was almost calling it a sin to compare with somebody. Let us give them the courage to be unique. Where they were all, where we give them the courage to be unique and we celebrate that uniqueness. And we appreciate their effort, not the outcome, not the results. When they come back with a B grade or a C grade, encourage them to put more effort rather than judging for their grades. Encourage them, sit with them. Maybe there might be something stopping them from putting the effort, but if we do not focus on what's going on with their effort, maybe there's something physical or emotional struggles behind that, why they're not able to put in the effort. Or so spending time, and none of these comes free. A lot of time, many of these aspects come by spending time with them. And that's why that love equals presence becomes very true when it comes to our children. And if you're if there are struggles with any of these areas, I think you need to bring it to the Lord, trust Him and in His mercy. And this is if everything is based on love, then the next question comes: how do we train them? How do we coach them? How do we? I purposely took the word training instead of teaching, because we have a tendency to teach love rather than train in love. And we all know, and from many retreats and many sessions that we have attended, that love is not receiving, but it is giving. And we train them in how to forgive. And we this training involves teaching to love people about things and how we respond to the various struggles and sufferings that the Lord allows in our lives. And this comes, and this is practiced, and this is practiced in our homes. They're watching, and you can see in the picture, it is somebody is not lecturing, but training, holding through that process, taking them through that process, and giving the courage, and giving the gospel values, giving the power of the gospel to exercise this. And we all know how difficult it is to forgive. We all know how difficult it is to give, and how difficult when we talk about loving people or things. We are constantly challenged in our day-to-day life, in our conversations in the car, in our struggles that the Lord allows in our lives. We see how difficult it is to practice that. And they're watching, they're seeing that. And this is the gospel that is being lived in the day-to-day or the many moments in our homes where these situations are proposed, or we encounter these situations, that we teach them, we train them rather, what is love and how we respond, which enables them towards self-mastery. When the documents human sexuality, um, guidelines for raising children, the document talks about self-mastery as the foundations, or as the building block of chastity. And this is nobody runs a marathon in a day. It is not that he's not capable, but it is a training that is needed to run a marathon. And self-mastery is something very similar. And you build them just like we were training in love, the various aspects that we thought about. And as parents, and especially when raising children, a couple things I wanted to add in addition to the previous elements of love that we talked about, or training of love that we talked about, is practicing no as a loving word, and as a disciplining word, and also helping them to distinguish between wants versus needs. Everyone has it, everyone else has it, or everybody else does it is not a reason for why I have to do that. And of course, all of this starts with by practicing in our own lives first as parents. But then we get the courage to tell them, help them, train them to differentiate between wants versus needs. I want an iPhone. Do you need it? As parents, we have all the right to ask them, do you need it? And I try to even ask another question, do you really need it? And no is a friend when it is communicated with love. We often cannot say no because we are not able to provide love as a presence. Then we substitute with yes as objects. Many times we fall into the yes of objects because we cannot provide that presence, which gives us the courage to say no. And this is an important aspect, or rather very, one of the great mysteries, which a middle schooler is very inquisitive about, at the age of, I would say the middle schooler age. And the church teaches us that parents, when it comes to sexuality, parents are the sole educators, and it has to be imparted in the context of love and marriage. And the definition of love as taught by the church, as we were reflecting in the past a few minutes, it has to be in the context of true love that the gospel teaches us, and the context of marriage. And this is it is beyond some biological information. And I'm sure as middle schoolers, they all go through education and sex education and classes in their school, but that's an area where as parents we had to take a bold step or an upper hand and say, this is what and for example, I have to and I heard it from somebody where they said, I don't send my children for the standard school curriculum. I choose to do it myself. And most schools have the option of declining that as an option and imparting this education within the context of family by the parents. And the points here are more. I noted this so that this can work as a guideline on how to impart this. There's a lot. If you had to, this can be a 2-hour session by itself, and all the details in these 2 slides. But these are more pointers. Talk them about the creation. First, before talking about sexuality, propose or give the ideas about or the truth about the human body, and do not be shy about it. Read some books, read the creation account, And there are some good books also out there. Look into it and see, explain to them. And this is an area that they will be very, very interested about. They would sit hours to listen to this education. Trust me, they would never be done with it. If you try to teach them algebra or literacy homework, they would be bored in 5 minutes. But this is one subject where you can really have meaningful conversations, and in the context of God, on the basis of gospel, the creation account, great way to have conversations with them. You will enter into their personhood in a much profound way, by taking, and it is not something to be shy about. It is something to be bold about. And we all have a body, and there's immense resources out there as well. Marriage and family, where this is being redefined, and one of the greatest challenges facing children, and especially as people who are trying to live the gospel. And I, just today I was talking to Dino and Jesus Youth, the challenge of our children are going to face, the next generation is going to face, trying to live true family life. Even to the definition of marriage is being redefined, and the challenge that is awaiting our children. And we had to be all the more vigilant and proactive, in this change situations and circumstances. Nakedness and shame. Introduce them to the nakedness before the sin and the shame that came after the sin. I have put the references in here. The nuptial meaning, of the body, how the body of man and woman in its physical expressions are meant for each other, for completing each other, and teach them on, or talk to them about the deep meaning of the body, and the reverence of what it means. And you'll be amazed at the amount, the sacredness, as you look dig deeper into each of these points by even just doing a simple Google search. You'll be amazed at the amount of or the sacredness of the body. And just as preparing for this, I was looking at the resurrection. This word came to my mind as resurrection of the body, and looked at it, and I was amazed at the details in the Catechism, where 1017 talks about. Our present body will be, it's not a, it is a body in a different form, but it is our current body that will be resurrected. Giving even more reasons why we need to have reverence for our body, by our clothing, whether it is modesty. But otherwise, just telling them, oh, don't wear that shirt, don't wear that cloth, is not enough. It's more profound. It's much more deeper. Tell them why, what is behind this body. It is not just something biological. It is much profound than that. Maybe I'll provide some of the links to more information about some of these topics on the website. And like I said, this could be easily a 2-hour session. And continuing on the sexuality, but this is some of the more practical aspects for a middle schooler. This is probably a time where you can talk about the genital aspects of male and female. Talk to them about the bodily characteristics of the opposite sex, and especially with boys and girls. And this actually I have taken from the document, the Human Sexuality document, which produced by the church, one of the most beautiful practical documents, which is all parents can read and understand. There's much more than it is. I think it's a 35-page document, but this wealth of information as parents. And for boys, this is the time when they will be experimenting with venturing into many sexual experiments, especially with a lot of information that they are getting, or rather incorrect information that they are getting from their peers. Very interesting subject for them at this age, and they'll be correct their temptations. But these conversations help them, and and with my own experience, I can say these are great. Once you get into these conversations, you will be amazed at the level of depth of conversation that you'll be able to have with your children. And again, with the girls, help them to joyfully accept the development of femininity, not as a burden, not as explain them the cycles of fertility and their meaning and the deep meaning behind it, the beauty of motherhood, the deep meaning of virginity, and here the nuptial meaning that I mentioned in the previous slide. There's a lot of good articles from many dioceses and parishes on that. Talk to them. I think if you just take this topic, these 2 slides can have a 2-year conversation, a conversation spanning 2 years, and where you'll get to know and form our children in a very profound way. I want to recollect a phrase that Father Joshi was saying last weekend. Lust, every expression of lust is search for love in a negative way. So if children are falling into sexual temptations, sexual disorientations, it is search for love in a negative way. And as parents, we can intervene. We are probably the only people who can intervene in a meaningful way. So just a point on the girls, and the motherhood. Many times, motherhood and femininity itself is many times seen as a weakness, but only by celebrating it, by joyfully accepting it within our family, in the context of the family as mothers, rather than some necessary difficulty that we have to endure. Give them the courage to be feminine, that receptive, just like the body reveals just as it is revealed in the body, to accept that femininity. Give them the courage, especially dads, giving the courage to their daughters to be feminine. It is a dad who is saying it is okay to be feminine. It is okay to be, it is powerful. The feminine nature is not something to be shied away from, but to be proud of and to be nurtured and to be joyful about. And especially, dads have a very special role in bringing out this femininity. Otherwise, girls, and you can see where girls start behaving like, or becoming like boys. And they are different. God made them different. Though they're both equal in dignity. They're equal in dignity, no greater, no less, but they're different. They're created different. And each has their roles in society as well as in our homes. And accepting the difference and joyfully promoting those, very key. And the document will give much more tips on that. So getting into the next one, I found this beautiful picture in the internet. You will run into this often, and we are all tempted to judge. We are all tempted, and I know this is a great temptation when this happens, when we see this happen, and when we have these pictures taken, caught red hand. But these are opportunities for conversations. Yes, there might be momentary failures, but these are great opportunities for meaningful conversations. Do not lose them. So have a quick video, but I'm thinking I'll come back to this if we have time, and I'll go to otherwise I'll post this You can always watch it separately. But just wanted to, there's a beautiful video about an athlete failing and how the dad comes in, and I really like the song that is playing behind it. You raise me up to more than I can be, and as parents, that song refers to the Father God who raises us up in our failures, even in our failures, to more than I can be. And as parents, we do a similar role as our Heavenly Father, who raises us up to more than what our children can be. And the videos, you can see how the dad comes in out of the way to raise him up to more than what he could be at that, and in that moment of failure. This is one thing I wanted to stress is, as we raise children, is the experience of faith that we are able to build in our homes to our children, or in our children in our homes. And not sure whether the picture in the background is very clear enough, but it is Abraham with his son Isaac carrying the wood on his back, walking the pilgrimage of faith, which credited him as father of all faithful. The son is walking with the father, where even though he doesn't know, he is walking with him. And this is oftentimes how it is. The children are walking, but it is the faith of the father that is giving the courage for the son to walk. And I'm sure there's a great deal of faith that Isaac has experienced after this whole episode. It wasn't just Abraham, but the faith was transferred in a profound way at the end of it to Isaac. And that gives, and this is not a one-time lecture. It is not the experience, this experience is not, it is an experience of the heart versus the knowledge of the mind. We can send our kids to CCDs, we can send them to catechism classes, for retreats, but the experience of faith is what I would like to touch on at this time. And we should bring into mind the goal of education that we earlier talked about. Raising our children as human beings and Christians, helping them to grow in love for God and love for neighbor. And this comes in many ways, many situations that we face, and where we help them choose what is right and wrong. And that is the purpose of education, whether they're 5-year-old or 10 years old or 20 years old, 50 years old or 80 years old, choosing right and wrong. We can see the fruit of that education that we provide, that we help them choose, especially in their younger ages, and they learn to choose right and wrong as they go to college. And we see the examples of that too much in through the media, through the news. We see it is the many wrong decisions that they take, and this experience of or help to choose right and wrong. Reverence to church and authority. All those conversations that we have in our car on the way to church, on our way back from church. I remember when Father Jacob Manjali was talking to in one of his speech. My children, when you left your home, your God saw your attitude. Not just the time you entered church for Sunday Mass, but the moment you left the church, the moment you woke up on Sunday morning, he saw how you are preparing. And it is the same true with all of us. It is not how we sat and how we behaved in the church during the Mass, but how we prepared for that Mass on our way to um, uh, uh, church, or how we took, what was our reaction when things were getting late, or how we were preparing, how easygoing we were, or what was the urgency for us when we were late at church. How all of that is being watched. All of that is the experience of faith we are trying. And of course, also to the authority. All authority comes from heaven, from above, and Jesus himself was subjecting himself, even though uh, he the authority that was allowed over him when he was standing before Pilate. Help them to do good confessions. And the previous conversations about the sexuality will give you deep insight into what's going on in their lives, in their deep personal life, and give them the courage, help them for good confessions, and let them experience the beauty of reconciliation, of the sacrament of reconciliation. And all of this I'm talking about, not just the information that they gather, but the experience of it, and how we celebrate life within our homes. And I'm glad for the pro-life ministry taking great steps towards this, very practical steps. When there's a March for Life, or when there's a life seminar, or life Sunday, how as a family, how the attitude that we have in our church, maybe we didn't get a chance to go, but how the attitude with which we are participating in it, whether physically or emotionally, how we participate in there. And then of course the parental authority and grace that we already talked about, trusting in that and giving hope in whatever situations. And this is one takeaway from my retreat this last weekend. I credit it to Father Joshi for challenging all of us. And I want to, I thought it was he speaking for all of us on this, or listening, or watching this. One meal, one prayer, one conversation, as a family, together, every day. Very not easy, but very challenging. And with that, I would like to open up for any questions. Thank you for listening.